Hello everyone, my name's Yvonne and today I'm going to show you how to start cross stitch in very simple steps. So we're going to learn to use thread, Aida fabric and how to grid our piece of Aida in order to centre our design on the Aida so you don't end up with something up there and a big load of nothing down there. So off we go. So starting from the very basics, I have a piece of fabric here which is called Aida and it can come in different counts and it's normally in so many squares per inch. So this is 14 count Aida, which means that there are 14 squares per inch. Now I don't know how well you can see these squares. Oh look, it's not too bad. You can see that there are little holes between each square and that's where you're going to put your needle in to do your cross stitch. Now you've also noticed, I hope, that I have put a running stitch along the lines, along the central line there and the central line there. And the way to find your centre is to take your piece of Aida, fold it in half and give yourself a line down there. Now I sew just off the centre because the pattern I am going to use has one line down the centre, so my central line is going to be there. But I do need that and that because when I looked at my pattern, which is here, it's very, very easy to think that that should be the centre of your design. Well, it isn't the centre of the design because if I move this across, you'll see that I have put the central line there and the central line there and there. So the centre of my design is here where I've got these lines crossing and that's where your centre is going to be. And if I come across here to the one that I've already done, you can see my grid line is there and there, so my centre line is crossing here. All right, now I know this is going to be hard for you to understand to start off with, but if you want it to be right, you need to follow these steps. So, coming back to this, I just used some ordinary pale thread that I happen to have hanging around because this is going to come out afterwards and you don't want it too dark and you don't want it too light, otherwise you won't see where your grid line is going to be. Okay, next step. You're going to have to start your design, not from there, or from there, or from there, or from there, but you started from the centre. So when I looked at this design, I knew that I was going to have to start here in the centre. And if you look there, my line of stitching actually comes down there. So my centre is there, and this is where I started my green. So my green is just off the centre. The centre stitch is there, the running stitch is there, my green is there. So I started there and came down. Then I put the leaves on and then I went back to the top. Now the next step you need to understand with cross stitch is that you get these lovely threads and a lot of people can't understand why you can't just cut this off and sew with this. Now I think you saw how tiny these holes are, and if you try to sew your cross stitch without splitting the thread you would not be able to get more than one set through a hole and then you wouldn't be able to do the crosses. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the back of this embroidery, and I hope you can see that the back of the embroidery is as neat as the front. And this is because I'm going to show you a technique where you don't need to have knots in the back of your cross stitch. And you do this by taking just one thread from your 6 threads. So each of your threads here will be comprised of 6 threads sewn or twisted together. So you cut your metre length of thread and then you fold it in half. So at one end you have a loop You thread this loop through a cross stitch needle, and a cross stitch needle is fairly blunt, right? So if I do that to my finger, it's not going to cause me any pain at all. And this is because when you sew your cross stitch pattern, you don't want to be splitting those little squares. You want your needle to be a cross stitch needle which is blunt or rounded end, so that it goes through the holes and is not tempted to split your other holes. So you thread this, and I'll show you what happens next.